Hello, Brian Pearce with the Pearce Brothers. And you know, this video making business is kind of a new thing to me, and I'm still trying to figure out who our audience is. When I write articles for magazines, I know exactly who my audience is that I'm talking to, but in these videos, it's like, man, we get some people that are brand new to shooting. We have some very experienced guys. We have everything in between. And so I'm still trying to figure out my audience. So, but those that seem to be regular subscribers and that, I hope you're going to appreciate today's video because it's a real deviation from anything we've done. So, you know, we often talk about handguns and what we use them for. You know, me, myself, they're just kind of integral with my life. I use them daily. I shoot them. I enjoy them. We cherish them. But, you know, typically we talk about personal defense or hunting or something related to shooting, you know, in that regards. But today, I'm going to talk about maybe non-typical uses that we've used them for, that I've used them for. And they're really meant, this whole segment is meant to be humorous. So I hope you're taking it that way. So clear back in the I don't know, I guess in the mid 80s at some point, I picked up this little Colt Woodsman 22, little pre-war gun. Skeeter Skelton used to write about them some, and they've always had a reputation of superb accuracy. Colt put phenomenal barrels on them. They shot extremely well. These were kind of the original kit gun. They were very compact, lightweight, and years ago, long before I was ever married, we were up hunting, you know, I think this is probably early 80s. Been up elk hunting. It'd been a long couple of days, and we'd parked and we'd packed backpacked into an area and hunted elk. We'd actually taken a couple. We made it out, and we were going to go back with a special Jeep and pick them up and so forth. But anyway, we get back to where I had my pickup parked, and there was this wild apple tree in the mountains there. And it was big, really big. I mean, it was like it was 20 feet up to the first branch. And we were out of food, we were out of water, we were hungry, we were thirsty, all this stuff. And the guys were looking at those apples, and man, they're looking so good. And we're just like, they're trying to figure out, well, if we get somebody on shoulders and get a rope up over that, we can maybe hoist up. I'm like, yeah, but that's a long fall out of that tree. I said, you guys do things the hard way. So I went over and pulled out this little Colt Woodsman, and I angled back from the tree far enough, and I start shooting the stems of those apples right there, just trimming them off. Then the bullet had creased the apple a little bit, whatever, but it only took a minute until I kind of figured out the exact hold of this little gun, and pretty soon those apples were falling out of the trees, and everybody was eating apples, and of course there was tons of bear tracks around because the bears loved those apples as well. And so yeah, we didn't shoot any game with that thing. I mean, like grouse or something, but those apples really hit the spot when we were thirsty and hungry and needed some energy. And so anyway, I just, yeah, pretty unique use. Another one during the mid 80s. Well, let me go back in the mid 70s when Ruger came out with the Black Hawk stainless 357. I thought they were really cool. And my brothers, two of my sisters and a brother chipped in and bought me one that was just a great gun. I thought today I think they're a little too heavy for you know, heavier than they need to be, but this is the gun that this story takes place with. So my brother had needed help building a corral. Of course, corral was a little bit remote, no power. This was before generators were really a thing, and so we had these planks that we had to drive these big nails through, and we didn't have a drill. This was way before cordless drills and no power or anything. And it seemed like he had a hand drill, but the bit wasn't working and it kept slipping or something. Anyway, I said, you know what, let me do this my way. So I go over and get some 173 grain Keith loads in this thing, and I'm like, all right, let's punch holes here, and boom, boom. I grab all our, I mean, it's a pretty good sized corral. I'm going around punching all the holes in those boards, and there's neighbors that live about a mile away, and they hear all this, and they're like, yeah, they're building the corral. I think they're dropping planks over there. So that's always kind of been a joke between my brother and I about dropping planks, but we drill all the holes. Then we go to hold up the boards to drive the nails through, and he's got these doggone locust posts. Now, if any of you have ever ever had tried to drive a nail through a locust post, good luck. So I decided, well, we'll punch some holes with a 357. They don't even matter. They go in just little ways and it doesn't do any good. Now, locust also, if you take a chainsaw and go to cutting it, man, the sparks fly off your blade and dull your blade in about 2 cuts. And anyway, it's a pain in the butt. But anyway, at this time, the Freedom Arms was just coming into being, and I had been shooting, doing a lot of hand loading, experimenting with the 454. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to try this. So I have some 345 grain cast bullet loads in here, and with a really heavy charge of H110. And this is with the cases when they were still a large primer pocket at that time. And I'm getting an honest 1,700 feet a second plus velocity out of this gun. And so I go over and start punching holes with those. And they weren't going all the way through, but you know what? It was big enough to take the little nails that we needed to go through the planks or through the boards and into the posts. And we got that corral built without power with some really tough wood. So there was another unique use. Another story. Probably get in trouble for telling this one. So when I was building my house, it was a long deal. I'd get up at 4 in the morning and I'd work on my articles and so forth until my mind was not ready to write another article or write another word. And I'd come work on the house, and it was a log house, very labor intensive. I engineered it, I designed it, I built it, rented a 12-ton generator and turned the logs on site. It was quite a job. So at some point, I had forgotten to put a little cutout in the foundation for part of the plumbing to come in and out. And when we poured the cement, anyway, it got omitted. Long story, but my plumber was very, very busy. He's a very good friend of mine. He's very, very busy. He's like, set a little time out to come out and do the plumbing on it. And I'm like, and he's like, Brian, I can't do it until that foundation, until we have a hole in that thing. Well, I live a long ways from anywhere, and there was no place that really rented jackhammers at that time. And, I can take a sledge and hammer it out, but it's like, he's like, Brian, he said, I can't get it done today. He said, I'm talking a month or 2 away. And I'm like, can't do that. So have you eaten lunch? He said, no, I'm about ready to go though. And I said, go eat lunch. I'll have it ready when you get back. He looked at me like, what in the heck? And I go, don't worry, go eat lunch. It'll be done when you come back. He's like, what are you gonna do? I said, it'll be done. So I got my old Ruger flat top 44 Magnum, and I'd had one of these that just kind of kept with my truck all the time, and so I go over and get back a little ways, and I take the old 44 Magnum and I chisel that thing out just perfectly square, just boom, boom, boom. I had that thing knocked out long before we got back from lunch, and he come back from lunch. I said, it's ready, and had to knock out a pretty good chunk of that cement. And of course, being a big log house with a lot of weight, I overbuilt the foundation, so the walls were very, very thick, and or the foundation walls are very thick rather. And but anyway, very unique use for a 44 mag, and it worked, and kept moving on the house. So another story that's a little bit humorous too is so when I was pretty young, I won't tell you how young. When I was pretty young, we used to take our cattle from the Nutmeg Flats, which is about 20 miles out of Weiser, and we push as many as 800 head of cows with calves into May, 1st of June, and we'd go cross country up through Indian Valley. Take us about a week to get to Council, where we had another mountain ranch, big blush mountains and pine trees and wonderful country up there. And we'd spend the summers up there. Well, my mother had passed away a few years earlier, when I was 9 actually, and I knew people around the Council area that were hunters and shooters, and they knew I carried a gun everywhere I went. I just kind of had a reputation that way, and so this is before I could even drive. So I should say drive legally. When you grow up on a ranch, you learn to drive when you're like 5, So anyway, we had some devil worshippers, and I won't get into this too much. That would come. We had a highway going north that went right through the center of our place. And the devil worshippers would come in and mutilate our cow, kill a cow and mutilate her, take the various organs and whatever. And the sheriff, Jim Heileman, was a good friend of mine, and I used to go shooting with him all the time. And we ultimately caught the devil worshippers, and we thought the problem was over. So my dad, when he'd remarried after my mother passed away, we moved to Arizona for a couple of years during the school time of the year. And Dad was raised in the mountains of Arizona. And anyway, he still had a couple of ranches up here. And so he'd come back to Idaho during the fall and get the cattle shipped and whatever, and kind of in and out. And I was living in Arizona, going to school with my sisters and my stepmom. And it was quite a deal. But when this happened, one of the ranches, Dad, I'm trying to make this too long here, but one of the ranches, he'd sold it, and the people had burned the main house down. It was a really cool old house. They'd burned it down and then defaulted on payment and gave it back to Dad. So Dad was staying in a little house that was kind of down near the highway. And he was, Dad was definitely a believer in gun, but he didn't pack one everywhere. He probably had one in the pickup, but he didn't have one in the house that night. And all of a sudden, somebody's trying to break in the house. Boom, boom, smashing in the door. And he gets up and he thought, and my dad was a very capable guy, but the guy kept pounding and trying to kick in the door, and finally went around the side of the house. And Dad's like, man, I better get something here to deal with this guy, a baseball bat or something. And finally, the guy, Dad thought, well, this will fix him. He said, Brian, there he is! Shoot him quick, Brian! Shoot him quick! I wasn't even in Idaho. I was in Arizona, 1,000 miles away. But Dad yelling that, just the threat of shoot him, Brian, there he is, shoot him, was enough. The guy took off. And Dad said, yeah, he didn't come back. Dad had envisioned that it was somehow these devil worshippers coming back on him, but anyway, no, it wasn't. The guy never came again. I think he was just a hitchhiker that was looking for a warm place to sleep. But anyway, but just yelling that alone got his attention, and boy, he didn't want to break in anymore. Kind of funny. So yeah, anyway, I have a lot of stories that I could tell about six guns and fun. When I was a kid, that was a recreational thing with particularly my hired hands and a couple of my brothers. When you'd work all day, you're tired, but we didn't really watch TV. We had one. It was about yay big, a little black and white thing, and so we'd take six guns and go out and shoot and practice in the evening and whatever. And so six guns have always been a great source of entertainment for me. I've loved hunting with them, enjoyed them. Most Americans really love their six guns, or at least their handguns. But the new generation, I have to say handguns. But yeah, so there it is. I have a lot of stories I could share along those lines. But for today, that's just a few entertaining stories of an unusual use for a six gun. So there you have it. And thanks for joining us today. Hope to see you next time on the Pearce Brothers.